Hello and welcome back to Print 75 and 77, the pre-press combined lecture here at Fullerton College, or as you know it, your living rooms. This is Professor Ben Hewitt, and we're going to look at PIA's pre-press training manual, task 2, module 6, Acrobat and PDF. And no, we weren't having problems with that awesome sound. Those of you who are a little older or like to look at retro things will think, ha ha ha, I know that sound. And that sound actually explains a good amount of what we're going to talk about today, and the origin stories and the mythical past and the before time in the long ago, from where we get Acrobat and PDF. You might notice, as we've been going through all these generic named things through the last couple chapters, page layout software, illustration software, photo editing software, all these things are all trying not to say Kleenex when they mean facial tissue. But here we are at Acrobat. And in the world of Acrobat, there is only Acrobat. It is a singular program that does what it does. Much of its features now can be done in other programs, and other ways are available to make PDFs, but really, Acrobat still is the only pure PDF generating software that I know of, at least. So let's talk about it. So we're going to look at the different types of things that can make them. Ooh, there's a email coming through. I guess I deserve notification sounds after making you listen to dial-up modems. But we'll look at the types of things that can make PDFs. You might notice from the second bullet point here, there is a conspicuous absence of a word. Discuss the advantages of PDF files. You might notice it didn't say anything about disadvantages, because as of right now, there really aren't any. And this is one of those things that I know some of the curriculum we've been going through is a little bit outdated from time to time, but honestly, in the last 10 years, PDFs have only gotten better and more better suited for what we're using them for. So this was pretty prescient that they thought it was a good thing. And there's not a whole lot of drawbacks. It is actually the way to make print files. So hooray. And we'll also talk about the different ways you can make them. Let's go through. Good news for those of you pedants who don't like saying things like ATM machine, because if you want to say PDF file, although it's a little hard to say and a little annoying, at least you're not ATM machining it, because it stands for portable document format, so you're not redundancying it. Anyways, I totally botched that last sentence, but it's okay because I used to work as an intern in the Department of Redundancy department. Anyways, so the PDF was originally developed by Adobe. It is the Adobe PDF. They came up with the specifications, though it's gone open source since. It was their baby. And it was built using their imaging model using PostScript. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. But let's just say that because it's using PostScript, even a basic PDF can show up really good graphics and typography accurately. So let's go on. For those of you who watched my semi-related video I put up ahead of this from Office Space with people talking about the memo and the TPS reports and the covers, well, it's less semi-related than you think and more actually related, because the original use of a PDF, why Acrobat was invented and what Adobe was trying to solve was the problem of not even inter, but intra-office communication. In large corporations in the 80s and 90s, you had to send memos and updates from the boss to all his workers to remind them that he's the boss and they're the workers, and to remind them to put covers on their TPS reports, and sometimes to announce things like, hey, take a half day on Friday because Christmas is coming, we want to give you a little bit of time, or company picnic on Sunday, or whatever else, or by the way, guys, your timesheets are all late, please turn those in. There's a lot of reasons you'd want to do it. But previously, they were all sent by courier around a building, passing out sheets of copied paper saying, this is your memo. And people get stacks and stacks and stacks of paper sent to them, which is now what your email inbox looks like. Anyways, Adobe creating the PDF was saying, well, what if we had a way of creating a document that you could send throughout a business, throughout an office, and everybody could get it on their computers at their desk, and they could all see the same thing in the same way. That way, all the formatting is always the same. You're not able to go in there and just make typed changes. It's not like sending a Word document around. You're sending an image, but the image is containing text and layout and sometimes images, and people are all able to open it at different computers and look at the memo, and you don't waste all this table space and paper and printing and toner. And even back then, toner is like the most expensive substance on this planet, per ounce. Whew. And we'll get into why that is later in this class, by the way, because it's one of the things I enjoy is talking about digital printing and how it's done chemically and electronically and all the different parts of engineering that went into building it. It's fun stuff. It's also my origin story, being a child of a Xerox engineer, software in my case, although my best friend's dad was more of a actual engineer. Long stories, interesting stories, I swear. But it ties me firmly to digital printing, mainly because I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for it. So anyways, so they were using their PostScript language. And PostScript, in case you guys need a refresher on this, PostScript is a secret communication language that computers use to talk to printers. When you do a file print, or Apple P if you're older on a Mac, or Command P if you're younger on a Mac, same button, they just lost the Apple symbol that used to be on there. But Command P, Control P if you're on a Windows machine, say file print this for me. The computer converts whatever you were seeing on your screen in your design program into something called PostScript, which is a page description language that describes to a printer in a way that it understands what the graphics are that you're trying to print. It tells it what the pictures are, what the pixels are in the picture, what fonts are being used, what letters to display, how big to make everything, and describes it for output. Adobe used that type of language to create the PDF. It's a derivative of PostScript. So it wasn't long. In fact, in hindsight, it was inevitable before someone said, hey, I'm going to print this PDF because I still like paper memos. And they realized that the PDFs were printing better than other things. Another note on why PDF is cool, and from the same origin story. Man, I need a better picture for you guys to look at while I'm doing this. No, that doesn't look any better. Sorry, it's a page of text and me talking. This is peak fun. Aren't you guys glad you're in school right now? Anyways, back to that horrible dial-up internet sound. Another one of the constraints when they first invented PDF was the speed of the computers they had at the time. Here, this is better. So this image helps you understand the context of what they were up against when they were building the Acrobat and the PDF for the first time. You were working with computers, and this is one of the best ones of its era. This is the Apple II. Oh my gosh, the Apple II Plus was amazeballs. You could actually fly airplanes on it or take the Oregon Trail. But games and game history aside, here we are with, this is the type of computer that you were dealing with in offices full of computers. This and early DOS boxes. And the type of connection you had for a network in the building, which by the way was still cutting edge when I was a kid, to have a network in a building, to have a local area network. We have our own LAN, oh my goodness. The newer types of cables, Wi-Fi, the broadband, what do you call it? My brain's not working. Fiber optic cables and really, really high speed, wide bandwidth communication wasn't possible. They were using the existing infrastructure at the time, kind of like the beginning of that dial-up. That's right, it was all phone lines. And phone lines don't have that much capacity for carrying data across networks. So if you want to do that reliably, quickly, and effectively, you had to find a way of streamlining your file size to be much, much smaller and much more efficient, or you would never get it sent. Remember, we're looking at an Apple II here. These are the sort of things that if you wanted to show multiple kilobytes of information at once, that's right, I said kilobytes, it took a while, and the processing power was not there. So a PDF was a way of sending files around that would look okay on early computers and still transfer within the same day that you sent it. So by the time you get to 1996 and they create Acrobat 3.0, they start creating PDFs that are actually designed for printing because they realized that it worked pretty well. In one of those, you got peanut butter on my cereal, or sorry, the way around, whoops. I'm mixing up my old commercial slogans. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. They realize you got print in my PDF. You got PDF in my print. Hey, this works great. So as they start creating these things specifically for printing with PDF 1.2, you start getting really good results, and they start realizing that they can use it for print, and that leads to them developing it specifically as a printing tool. Now, Acrobat was originally set up so you could create PDFs, and you still can if you have Acrobat. You can make a PDF from nothing, kind of a very basic way of creating these, especially if you want to send them somewhere and have people use your PDFs for things like filling out an online form and sending it back. It's actually a good idea to create them in Acrobat. Although most of the time for printing applications, we'd rather create them somewhere else and then use them over there. You can also view them in Acrobat Reader, which is free. You can even print them at full quality from Acrobat Reader, which is free and available to download. If you guys don't have Acrobat Reader, well, if you have actual Acrobat, which you should in this class, you're fine. But if not, or if you have a secondary computer and you don't want to install everything, get Acrobat Reader on there. You're doing yourself a big favor. So an interesting thing about this is a PDF as a file is a different kind of file compared to everything else. It contains things, because it's based off PostScript, and PostScript does this, it contains images, and it contains fonts, and it contains vector graphics, but it is not any of them. It is a container format, and I really prefer a better name for this because I like these kinds of dorky names. They also call it a meta file. Oh, meta. Yes, meta is a fun word. It's a meta file. Of course, I guess I would be a meta file if I'm someone who likes metas. Interesting, right? Anyways, so meta files, it contains other things. So it can have vector objects, it can have text objects, and it can have raster. This is the first time they say raster. They should have back in the photo editing chapter, but they didn't. They just call it images and pixel files. Raster files are pixel files. So raster images can also be in there. But the PDF is not any one of these. It's the box that holds them all together. That's where its real power comes, is the ability to contain other types of information. Most of the time, if you're sending a TIFF to print, which is the type of image file you should be using, guys, not JPEG, it wasn't meant for printing, but if you're sending a raster file like that to print, it's only raster, and any vector inside it is really just rasterized vector. And any text you put into it is just rasterized text. And if you sent a pure text file to print, it's only going to print the words. And if you sent a pure vector file, you could have some of the stuff in there, but not all of it. But PDF lets you put everything into one file, and that's when you finally are able to create this beautiful output in an efficient sense that actually keeps things in place. In fact, one of the greatest things about PDF, like I've been saying about other programs, is not what it does, it's what it does not do. As they developed PDF to print, they built it in a way they can maintain things. It can take IC profiles, which controls color output and maintains the artist's original intent. And it takes that right through the pipeline and puts it through to the press without altering it. It doesn't change your files. It doesn't change your formats. It doesn't change your layout. If you guys have ever opened up a Word document on a different computer and suddenly there's like a second page you didn't know you had and the pictures are all in the wrong place, that does not happen with PDF. By using PostScript, it is a much more graphically stable way of doing things. And is a great way of passing your file to another computer to print later, so you don't have to worry about your layout suddenly changing, like someone bumped your basket of cupcakes in the back seat of your car, and then it's no longer a beautiful display. And it does good things like this. We'll stop here and then pick back up next time, and next video, we'll hopefully finish it out, but we will see, won't we? But here it is, nested inside. Here is, because you're looking at my Acrobat, I'm looking at Acrobat, which is looking at shows a PDF, which is a picture of a PDF. And inside it, you can see there are vector, raster, and text objects. Until next time.